So today is September 5. Thank you very much for joining. And as I see, there are some attendees whose children are with different range of age, the teenagers, from teenagers to 2.5, 3-year-old child, all here. So I'm blessed that I have your trust, and I try my best to run some kind of informative workshop about school behavior. But to be honest, I think that it's better to provide such workshop in a kind of routine and then gradually expand the term or meaning. I'm not going to claim that this, let's say, 50 minutes workshop is going to address all concerns or questions about the school behavior. Many of them might be missing, and many of the strategies might be the ones that I might miss today. So don't take a look at this workshop as a kind of encyclopedia of school behavior or encyclopedia of strategies about the school behavior, okay? Instead, it's just a kind of start or initiation. Initiative step that I wanted to take, even though it was a little hard, but I did it. And if the reputation is good enough, I will realize that, okay, it's the need of the public, so I will repeat it, or I will expand it, or I will make a series of the workshop about the school behavior, because as an occupational therapist with years of experience of working with children, I have been in good standing and communication with the let's say, school staff. I have been in communication with them. So I have received lots of reports from them. So I have attended lots of school meeting along with them. And I can say that I have been in a place to be an extra ear to listen up to the stories, or complaints, or concerns of families, and also the teachers. Apparently, sometimes they don't understand each other. Apparently, sometimes the teachers might underestimate the child's, capability. Sometimes the families are unwantedly are ignorant or are not well educated or trained about the child's level of skills or the expectations in the school setting. So like my work is like kind of a broker that stays somewhere between these relationships. So one of my ears is open to the clients that I know, and clients who know me. And the other ear is open to the concerns of public schools or private schools or daycare. So when I listen to that side, I say, yes, you're right, you're right, you're right. Yes, I know it is hard, yes. But when I listen to this part, say, oh, yeah, it's impossible. If I wear your shoes, I wouldn't tolerate. Yeah, yeah, you are right. So it's a thing that as a um, as a person who is partially aware about both ends, uh, I was motivated to run this workshop. And in this workshop, I'm going to mention about the 7 most common reported school behavior or school issues, okay, school behavior issues. And then I'm going to provide a few comments or suggestion or advice for each one. So, the concern that today we are going to briefly point to today are elopement, excessive fidgeting and movement, non-compliance with authorities, issues in following the mainstream, challenges in emotional regulation, silly behaviors, and total dependence to one-on-one support. So these 7 topics are listed. For sure, I know hurting others, pushing others, not paying attention to others' personal space, personal belonging, lack of communication skills during the classroom setting, not being initiative in responding to the question that the children already know, not engaging in the team project, getting away and reading from any responsibility in the team project. There are other concerns that I could list, but actually, if I wanted to do so, even 2-hour workshop would not be enough. And just accept it as a kind of introductory session, and then for sure I will continue running such workshop about school behavior later on. So, firstly, I want to talk about elopement. So, elopement, as you know the meaning, is on no sudden, unnoticed leave of space without seeking for permission. It is a dangerous behavior. Many school settings have such nightmare. Oh, the number of kids is not much. Oh, based on the attendee list, you are supposed to be 29, but you are 28. So where is the 29th guy? Washroom, kitchen, corridors, hallway, park. He was close to the street. He was at risk of being hit by a car. So elopement is that dangerous. And about elopement, we can mention or make some hypotheses, like if it is due to lack of communication skills. For example, if a child has some idea in mind to want to go somewhere and come back, but doesn't know how to speak up, how to speak up his needs, how to talk about his feeling, or how to talk about taking a break. So he leaves. Maybe he might leave because of some excitement to just play partially like a kind of hide and seek event. Maybe it's due to low self-esteem that wanted to see what happens if I hide or get missed. And then if others notice at all, am I that valuable that others get worried for me? There are other emotional challenges that would be addressed as well here. But sometimes elopements are the terms that are going to be labeled for the behaviors that are deliberate action of elopement. Okay, but sometimes even a child might get missed or might get lost just because he forgot the direction of the corridor, and then because of the lack of staff-child ratio, maybe one child out of a sudden shows a different direction in the corridor, and then we cannot mention it's elopement, even though the child is not in the right place at that time. But elopement is mostly the deliberate action. And sometimes they are related to lack of communication skills, darkness seeking, and low self-esteem. But what I can do as suggestion as an advice for this part is that if it is deliberately, then we should make sure that what the intention behind that. If the intention behind it is checking the value or importance of the child, if the child wanted to, let's say, make fun out of it or see the worried face of others, or if the child just needed a break but wasn't able to request for it. So the other thing that I suggest you is to check the frequency and check the antecedents of that. How often does it happen? And what are the exact things just before that? Is it partially due to the time that children are supposed to have a sport class or math class? Or is it most of the time happen right the day after the child is bullied by others? Or is it because of the absence of the favorite teacher of the child? So once you take a good record of the child's behavior, it's not necessarily about elopement, but if you take a good record about the child's behavior and then check the antecedents, you might find some correlation. And those correlations might help you make some accurate hypothesis about why probably that behavior happens. So, but we cannot let children show elopement and then we find a solution for that. Most of the time, elopement is considered as a kind of very dangerous behavior. So we need to have some safety precautions as well, like kind of using a tag or some navigator or some home address labels in the pocket of the child's pants or some wristband in which the name of the child is clearly mentioned, or some ABC protocols of crisis management sharing that elopement dangerous behavior with the principals or staff, and sharing of number one, number two, number three, phone call, phone number, and also be fully vigilant about the school's phone call if it happens, and many things like that. And also even practicing role play with the child that if you get lost and no one is around you, to who you should approach, to who you should ask help. So the other things about elopement. And I have seen many of the children that commonly are using a tag as a kind of GPS navigator thing that can localize the child when moving. So I strongly recommend it if you are having such concern, not to wait for the incidence of elopement, but be proactive about that and be cautious about it as well. So the next concerning behavior is excessive fidgeting and movement. It's one of the most common complaints by the teacher, and surprisingly, the parents dismiss the importance of that. It's one of the issues that make a very, very big gap between families' understanding of the challenges happening at school and the school staff's expectations of the family and parenting pattern, that at least the parent acknowledge this behavior is very, very distracting, distracting to others, and also disturbing and disruptive behavior to others. But once the child is excessively fidgeting or moving, even it is not only he or she herself gets distracted of the task, but also changing the total vibe or mainstream of the whole classroom, specifically in public school, that because of the lack of staff, they are struggling with classroom management, classroom behavior management. So there are many reasons behind it, like kind of sensory needs. Many of the children have some sensory needs, want to rock, want to move along, want to touch items or objects, want to make sound. They are fidgety, they want to regulate themselves, they might have some issues related to excitement or emotion regulation. Sometimes it's related to lack of sleep. Sometimes it's related to being hungry or thirsty or weakness in self-regulation, that the children cannot reach out to designated person to talk about the need. I'm hungry, that's why I'm excessively moving everywhere. So I haven't had adequate sleep last night, so I'm restless. I'm restless. I'm regulating myself by movement just so that the time passes. So the other thing that I want you to double think and double check with your children. If your child had enough sleep, if on the days that your child hadn't had enough sleep, if tomorrow you have gotten a report about fidgeting behavior or excessive movement, they are the things that you need to be informed about. And the quick advice is that once you record the time, you will find correlations, and it is important. Sometimes I will provide some suggestion or recommendation to the teachers, like break intervals, intermittent break between each activity so that the child can go and address the sensory list. Sometimes I will list down a few sensory dieting so that the child fidget and walk and go to a sensory room and play with some sensory equipment or toy to regulate himself. And sometimes even the reason that the child is excessively fidgeting and moving is that the child is still struggling with the concept or meaning of the activity. All the things that are provided to the child is not interesting to him. He prefers to play with iPad instead. He doesn't get the exact instructions of a game or rule or a project. So once he doesn't enjoy attending the school, he might be restless or moving around or fidgeting around. Yeah. But there are the quick advice, and there could be a longer list of the reasons or no advice or recommendation. But let's move to the next part. The next slide is about non-compliance with authority or non-compliance with figures of authority. What does it mean about authority? It means that in any setting, any classroom setting, any clinical setting, even any structured setting in general, there should be A, B, C. There is some kind of hierarchy. There are kind of rule makers, policy makers, the ones who are watching the rules, the ones who are watching the safety. So once we are talking about non-compliance with the figures of authority, in fact, we are mentioning that the figures of authority, due to the responsibilities or limitations that are exposed by the reality of life, they are obliged to follow and do something. Follow and do something to take care of the best interest of the whole group. Okay? But sometimes we see children that are doing negativistic behavior. Yeah, they might be inattentive. They might not, they might have some struggling with attention. They cannot pay attention to the teacher because of lack of attention. They might be weak at language comprehension, so maybe the teacher is instructing them what to do or reviewing the rules of the classroom, but due to language comprehension, that the child has some, let's say, auditory perception issue or anything related to working memory, okay? The child language comprehension is impacted negatively. So maybe that's why the child is non-compliant. Also, sometimes due to the very weird reasons like kind of poor dynamics of the family and weak hierarchy of the family parenting pyramid, sometimes the child might feel that I'm put at the pinnacle and at the peak of the pyramid of power. No one can force me to do anything. I want to do anything I want. I don't have to listen to you. Nope. Sorry. I do whatever I want. No one can force me. Okay. That attitude that sometimes the parents enjoy and laugh and love and feel, wow, I love my son. I love my son. This is the boy that no one can force. This is the boy that no one can ask him or push him to do something. Yes, we people have, let's say, with the collective memory or history or background of unfair figures of authority. Let's refer to Iranian culture or background that all of us have been living in a situation in which the figures of authority, most of them used to be unfair, cruel, mean, brutal, not understanding, not showing any sign of empathy, just bossy, because I said so, you should do that. Let's not talk about the figures of authority in the government or politics, but also our parents. Our parents had parents. Our parents used to have parents, and our grandparents have been educated or worked with in some school setting called maktab, and they would be receiving falak as a kind of physical punishment. So let's say we had some idioms like چوب معلم گله هر کی نخوره خله or سیلی معلم به کسی ننگ ندارد فیبی که سهیلش نزند رنگ ندارد. So I just switched to Farsi idiom to double emphasize about the role of educational system, how our grandparents have been raised, how those grandparents trained and worked with our parents, and how those nephrosis, how the neurotic behavior has transferred from one generation to the next, and those transfer to next generation, and then we, as parents of the children, we have lots of bad memories of being forced illogically, of not having voice and not being put in a power of decision making, and they were feeling we are humiliated or degraded. So, because of that, now that we are parents, we are gonna retaliate from all those stupid rules. Now we are gonna raise up a child with maximum freedom. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, and there is no border, there is no figure of authority. No one can force you to do anything. Do whatever you want. What do you want to do? But it's not real. Most of the time, real life has lots of limitations, rules, policies, codes, and gradually children are supposed to get used to them and respect them and follow them. So those wrong signals or message perceived by the child in the hierarchy of the family because of the weak parenting pattern, okay, makes the first years of school the troublesome one, okay? And some advice is that check to see if the rules are clearly clear and understandable to the child. If the rules are fair, check the consequences provided so far to the child. Sometimes, for example, we set a rule and we say that if you don't obey this rule, so then I won't talk to you for 10 minutes. Just imagine that the child is threatened so, but the mom is the kind of person who keeps talking, keeps ordering the child. So once the consequence is I don't talk with you for 10 minutes, it's a reward, it's not a punishment for that child. Okay. So sometimes the consequences provided are not strict enough, and the child doesn't feel that he is obliged to do it or mandated to do that, or there is a serious consequence. So the child doesn't accept the responsibility of the behavior. Sometimes the parent education is needed, sometimes parent training is needed, and sometimes parent coaching is needed. Okay? So there are different terms. Education, training, and coaching. Okay? For education, you are just going to be receiving some learning some principles, A, B, C. It is reward, it is punishment. When your child does so, you should do this. And if you don't do that, you are sending wrong signal to the child. This, okay? It's called education. Even today's workshop, to its best level, is just education. But training is more personalized and more individualized. It's going to address and listen your concern. It's going to provide solution to you, and we're going to be provided to you in a term-based. So receiving one training at the beginning of a week, you have time to practice that training at home for the whole rest of the week. And then the next week, again, you are going to have the next round of training. The trainer will double check with you. Have you implemented those rules? If yes, have you been successful at that? At some point, you had some struggle. Let's double check at which point you were struggling with it, what part was hard for you, and then let's revise the rules and implement it for the next week. It is called training with feedback and review sessions, okay? But for coaching part, coaching is the time that a therapist can come to your home at the kind of home visit, home-based intervention, and you are going to watch how the therapist is working with your child, and then you are given opportunity to do the same thing that your therapist did before. You do it with your child. Therapist will jot down some note of comment or feedback. The therapist will coach you that next time do this instead of that, next time do this. They are instant feedback on the same session, and you have the chance of sharing your emotion. For example, you can say, once I'm strict to the rule, I felt guilty. I felt something bad about myself. I don't like my child be submissive. I feel that if I push him, there is some kind of negative consequence for the future, and the child might negatively impacted, or his self-esteem get ruined. Then you share your feeling or thought or concern or fears with the therapist or coach, and the therapist at the role of coaching will encourage you, will listen to you, will show empathy to you, will assure you that these things are going to be put on the right place. So coaching is emotional way of training with instant feedback. Yeah, and training is periodic and termic education with review feedback. Yeah, so I strongly recommend you, for non-compliance with figures of authority, be more vigilant about the complaints of school and consider them as the real expectations your children are supposed to face in near future. Don't dismiss them. Don't just think that, okay, the school staff or the teacher are mean to my child. This is the easiest explanation to attribute your school teacher not behaving fairly with your child. Most of the time, let's say 95% of the time, the fact is that even if you yourself have been the teacher of that crowded classroom, you would be hassled by your own child's behavior. So it's about non-compliance and my advice. Issues in following the mainstream is different thing. Mainstream is not about the figures of authority. Mainstream is about when all the students in the classroom are doing something, but some child want to leave the carpet time, leave the circle time, and go into other place to play with the toys. Okay, or not interested in the literacy class and also playing with a pen or something, okay, or totally got distracted looking everywhere or touching the phone in the meantime that others are working hard on a team project. There are issues with following the mainstream, okay? So there are some reasons behind attention problem, some sensory needs diversity, a different ritual or obsession in the mind, language comprehension, working memory, transition issues, and so on. Okay? For example, if a child has some different ritual in the mind, the child wants to keep the door open and close, open and close, open and close 3 times every time he enters the room. But since he is coming alive with the other children to the to the classroom, the teachers are not going to allow the child to keep doing that 3 times. So the child's mindset will not get freed up until he does it 3 times and he gets rid of that obsession or compulsion, then he can pay attention to the mainstream. But since those obsessive thoughts are not well addressed, he is restless and he not a kind of easy person in the classroom right after one. Or the people who cannot predict what's the next step, what's the next step, like children with language comprehension, or children with lack of theory of mind, or children with weak working memory, or children with lack of cognitive flexibility are dealing with transition issue. These people cannot predict what comes after right after the current project. So I'm drawing something, but how long should I draw? And what is the next task? When will we go out? When will we come back from outdoor to the classroom? Can I have my snack? When can I have my snack? Can I play with the toys? I want to play with the toy. I don't want to draw. Wow, and throw the tantrum. Okay, so for this thing, the quick advice is that first of all, the most successful program in clinical setting that I have ever experienced is bridging program, like kind of, let's say, day program, let's say, summer camp program, let's say, small group program, small group of social skill program. So specifically for day program, which is longer span of time involved, okay, so that we are about to look after the children for 6 hours per day, for example. Okay, we practice like a kind of bridging program in which we are going to gradually improve and increase the expectations and stimulate the classroom situation and then practice the same thing with the children by providing immediate and instant feedback, shadowing person, and utilizing some shadow person that like kind of there is a person instructor with assigned to just watch the child. Whenever the child gets out of the mainstream, immediate feedback and capture. Okay, so the child is performing almost independently. He might get distracted, like kind of he's supposed to draw something. He might get distracted, so he might daydream. So the shadow person is not going to push him back to the task because the child hasn't started any different action yet. He's has just made a pause. But after that pause, if the child drop the pen and want to leave the carpet and then go to other toy, for example, so there's a shadow that inhibit the child, take him back to the routine, say 5 more minutes, setting a timer. There should be some visual schedule to explain sequence, the next sequence after you do the drawing. Then you will be given a toy to play. So be patient, 5 more minutes, visual scheduling thing, okay? And whenever the child cannot follow the mainstream, the shadow should provide a narrative Like say, okay, let's watch the group of children. What are they doing? They are playing with a ball. Are they laughing? They are laughing. Which child holds the ball? Emily? Yes, Emily is holding the ball. Good job. Yes, exactly. Do you want to join children playing ball? So it's a thing that you just zoom out and align with the child, ask him or invite him to watch and describe and explain what he sees and what he hears. Then you are encouraging the child to follow the mainstream afterward. Yeah. So next slide is about challenges in emotional regulation. And for emotional regulation, we have these things. But some idea comes to my mind. I know that you are only 4 and the attentive number is 4. No, more than 4, about 8 or so. And I do know that maybe you feel that today's workshop is kind of boring with lots of theories and you your question or your concern are not going to be addressed for sure, or there is a judgment that, wow, so they are correct in theory, but are not going to meet my child needs. So, for emotional regulation, I just want each one of you to speak up if you can, if you have access to typing in the chat box. Speak up and talk. What do you want right now? If you need a 5 minute break, write it down. If you want kind of so to have a question so that you regulate your emotion right now, feel free to ask it right now. Okay? If you want me play a very, very short piece of music for you with my thought, just let me know. I can play it for you right now as a kind of treat. So, as a gesture of um, artistic treat. So, just reach out and then speak up your needs. What do you want? Music, break, questions to be answered? Just speak up your needs. Let's say if someone write down in the chat box anything, even if you want, you can privately mention it. Apparently, in the private chat box, or someone mentioned music. Oh my God. Really? Really? Most of the time, music, yeah, elevate emotional regulation. I do agree with that. So, any other vote? How come that the majority of the vote is 1/8? So, a question. What can we do if my son wants teacher's attention? Good question. Okay. Okay. So someone needs continuation, someone has a question, someone needs music. So since the majority are about the topic. Well, later on, I will, at the end of the session, for the ones that can stay longer, I can have the music at the end, right after we pause the video, okay? Deal? Deal. So, as for your question, Atusab, about what you can do with the son that wants teacher's attention. Fine, thank you. So there are several strategies that we should make sure. How did you get that your child wants teacher attention? If your child is struggling with communicative barriers, then maybe the teacher doesn't get it on time. Maybe something is advocating and increasing the awareness of your child teacher that these behavior are a sign of your child need. It is the language of my child that when he does so, in fact, he means so. Maybe having some meeting with the principal or teachers about the needs of the child is a good strategy to interpreting or helping the teachers have a better interpretation of your child behavior. The other thing is that for the majority of the time, due to the limitations, once I have asked a teacher to pay a specific attention in the public school to a specific child, the teacher unfortunately shrug shoulders, say, we can't do it because if we do it for a certain person, we have to be fair and equal, and equality and equity is the matter, so we should pay the same attention to all children one-on-one, and we don't have enough staff to do so. But by having a little creativity for the teachers specifically who have the passion of teaching and dealing with children need, the best strategy, in my opinion, is to ask your teacher to assign some peer support group for your child so that your child gets some one-to-one attention from a peer, and then those group of one or two children together can reach out to the teacher and then get a label or a sticker or some positive encouragement every 1 hour, and then putting that 2 minutes attention from the teacher on the agenda right after every 1 hour of work at the school, so that it becomes a new routine in the schedule, and then the child take it in, can take it in his own ritual or routine and then accept it. There are some ideas that might work or might not work, but for sure, if any of you needed any training that are kind of more personalized or individualized for your child needs, I am here and I can be responding to your question to the best of my knowledge or information. So I hope I have answered it. But let's get back to the topic. So emotion regulation might be a challenge if a child has limited communication skills. The child cannot express himself. The child cannot express his feeling or emotion. The child might have had some unmet sensory needs or unmet emotional needs. Yeah, the child might have some chaotic situation in life, might be um, might be exposed with lots of undigested feeling, might have experienced bullying in the family or in the classroom setting, and cannot talk about it, cannot speak up about that, cannot bring it up with anyone, either because of lack of communication skill, for example, the person is not verbal, or the child doesn't have enough self-confidence or self-esteem to speak up his needs, or maybe the child even is not aware about the zones of regulation or emotional feeling. Okay, whatever, which one of any of them, okay, can result in challenges in emotional regulation. And the quick advice is that I fully and strongly recommend psychotherapy services. Yes, it is important that every field or domain of expertise needs its own expert. Okay? Sensory diet. as it comes for the term of occupational therapeutic approach, sensory diet that can meet up the sensory needs. Psychoeducational service to family, concept of zones of regulation, that we can teach the child that, for example, when you are angry and your voice is going to be louder, and you might feel your face is getting red and your sound is vibrating and you might about to hit others, you are in the red zone of emotion regulation. For red zone, the first thing is take 5 deep breaths and sit on a chair. And then once you feel you are in yellow zone, in fact, you are still distressed, you don't have a good feeling, but now you don't have dangerous behavior. Now you can leave and speak up, leave the chair and speak up your needs, or ask for some kind of quiet time, or leave the, I don't know, ask permission for going to a sensory room to regulate yourself, or going to a private task like drawing or working with alphabet or letter to regulate yourself. Okay, so it is called zones of regulation. Or now red, yellow, green, blue are the zones, for example, and then the child should localize his emotional status based on the color code, and then practicing it make him more mindful about his zones of regulation of feeling. Also, in a small group breathing program, practicing conflict resolution, that as a kind of role play or puppet play or drama activity, that two children come into each other and then talk to each other, and there is a kind of scenario that one of them is unfair to the other, and the other one should say, stop it, don't do that, or doing some bully preventive approach. There are the things out there. Yeah. Also, there are some questions about zones of regulation, and then get easily upset over a small thing. Yeah, like kind of jacket instead of asking for help, get rid of. As far as I can guess, there is a huge pressure of thought that cannot be communicated well in a short span of time by his language. So the descriptive skills or his use of language, even though he can talk, even though he is verbal and can talk, but the load of huge pressure of thought behind that word make him kind of frustrated and cannot use the same pace or the same sophisticated level of use of wording or language or grammar whenever he's experiencing negative emotions. So specifically in negative emotion, people might feel transiently incapable of talking. As a kind of very, very funny example, just imagine that in a verbal struggle or fight or verbal argument between two spouses, okay? God forbid me, man and women, okay? Am I going to trigger a kind of sexistic thought? But in general, okay, when couples are going to verbally argue with each other, there is some exact point that the men and women are discussing over a topic with some verbal argument or discussion or conversation back to back like a tennis table, ping pong, tack, 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 tack. But all of a sudden, maybe the female gender has can utilize some part of the brain activity to say some words in the right timing that the man cannot find exact verbal response to that. So huge pressure of emotion all at once come to the mind, but lack of wording in the gender of men that are not well trained about linguistic skills in general, accepted from it. It's not a kind of sexistic word. It's more related to gender diversity and gender difference, and the differences between the gender, the differences between the potential of linguistic skills between the genders. Yeah. So men cannot find exact wording to respond back to that high level use of grammar or language. So men might be louder or even unfortunately physical. That in no way there is an excuse of being physical in any verbal argument, but I'm just talking about what happens as a natural sequence, not a kind of justifying it. I'm not justifying it, but it's a thing that just happens. So most of the time getting angry could be because of huge load of pressure of thought or negative feeling that the word or pace of grammatical use of word is not addressing it well. So let's move forward to the next before everything goes worse. So next thing is about silly behavior. Thanks God. So silly behavior is a thing that for the first years of my practice in Canada, I was told that language is important, you should not use some word. Then I wrote, then I read some reports from a teacher from a very well-recognized school with several use of the word silly behavior. Then I said, felt that maybe silly behavior is a kind of being a silly or even in some checklist may mentioned clowning behavior even. Okay, but uh, these negative attribution could be gradually removed from the literature or academic literature, but in general, what it is called silly behavior, let's make put it in the quotation so that it's not my word, okay? It's not my word, silly behavior, we said. It might be because of attention-seeking behavior. It might be because of weakness in assertiveness, low self-esteem, previous experience of bullying, and family dynamic which is chaotic. So several reasons behind a silly behavior that if a child wants to receive attention, no matter if the attention is a positive or negative one, just want to get attention and have realized that if he does some silly thing, like saying poop all of a sudden, saying poop, others laugh, poop, and others laugh. And then he might feel that, oh, I can get big deal of attention every time I simply say such word. But if I stay attentive on a team project, gluing and using glue stick and doing no kind of craft work, maybe the teacher might say, good job, keep it up, good job. But if I say, whoop, 5 or 6 classmates might laugh and encourage me to say it again. Ah, it's beautiful. Ah. So that attention-seeking behavior then could be a cause, and most of the time it happens amongst the children who are living in the family system that the whole needs of all family members mm, are not well met. So if there is a couple that cannot address each other's needs, cannot empathize with each other, and cannot make a kind of well-established or balanced dynamic in the life of the child, there is a higher risk of silly behavior at school. Maybe it's hard to relate them to each other, but trust me, I have observed and I know about what I can say about this. So low self-esteem and family dynamic is chaotic. So my advice is parent consultation, couple therapy, and sex education, working on visual art and craft for children, proposing the leadership role and responsibility of a group, leadership responsibility of a group to the child, instant feedback whenever a child gets silly, reviewing the acceptable and unacceptable behavior before the initiation of the session. So just before the session starts, you are saying, okay, we want to review the rules of room. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, no silly behavior. Or we can say that anything that is fun for one time. If you repeat one fun thing twice, it's no longer fun. So, for the first time, if a child says something that the majority of the classroom is laughing, so just continue the session and accept it as a kind of child, childish atmosphere where you work at, okay? But if a child insists on repetition of the same thing exactly right after the first round of laughter, then you can say, second time is not fun. Second time is not fun. So I give you time to regulate your emotion and get back, return your focus back to the mainstream of classroom. Sometimes even silly behavior, if specifically when it is welcomed by others, if it is well reputed by others, is a sign that the whole classroom mainstream is tired. But they are just asking that silly child to make them laugh. They don't dare to stand against the figure of authority, but they are bored as well. So in the meantime that you are reviewing the acceptable and unacceptable behaviors before the initiation of session, just share the power with the student and say that, okay, what can we do to make some fun in the beginning of session? So we can chunk down the 1 hour time of therapy or classroom setting into 5 serious work and 4 fun time in between. So 10 minutes serious work and 2 minutes free time in which every child can do whatever, specifically if they are not harmful or hurtful others. So laughing at others or bullying others or calling each other's name is not acceptable, even in the free time. But being fun or maybe grimacing or some facial mimic or showing this or showing this is okay, it's acceptable for that 2 minute time frame. Again, 10 more minutes serious work, and children are going to learn that silly behavior even is okay and acceptable in the designated time and in the designated location. So you are about to postpone the needs of silly behavior to those designated time, which is acceptable behavior. And if they do it in that 10 minutes of structured time, it's no longer acceptable. Yes? Does it make sense? But again, we're insisting on couple therapy and sex education again. So, total dependence to one-on-one instruction. It is a very, very, very important one. Unfortunately, we are in lack of time, but I think that is the last slide, I assume. Yeah? Let's check. Is it last slide? Yes. So, thank you for your patience. It's the last slide. So, it's about that. Why I'm saying so, some children, because of not having idea what to do, they are totally addicted or dependent to others to instruct them. For example, the child himself can do a can solve a 6-piece puzzle. It's a six piece jigsaw puzzle that you are going to ask your child to put them. And he can do it. You know that he can do it all by himself. But he just bring the puzzle next to you, sit next to you, and work it close by you. If you say, he can pay attention to the task. But if you go and go over on a kind of phone call, or if you leave the situation and go to the kitchen, or if in the school there is a kind of project that children are supposed to work on it at a table, and once their task is done, they are supposed to show the finished project to the teacher. I did it, it's finished, and they can't do it. They need someone to sit next to him right after to help them maintain their sustained attention. Okay, they might suffer from sustained attention or selective attention. They might have some idea apraxia, or because of the history of perceived interaction with some adult staff, adult person, some that kind of just a child with the diagnosis of ASD, that the majority of his lifespan, that child has been in interaction with some adult instructor that said, good job, correct, no, don't do that, good job, correct, no, don't do that. As if the whole motivation or locus of control or performance have diminished, and the child has learned how to outsource all the willpower to the instructor, and then just be the operator of something instead of decision maker of something. Okay, so for any reason that the child is totally dependent to one-on-one instruction, the gradual distance technique is the one I'm fully recommending you to do. Okay, gradual distance technique is that pick one activity that your child is able to do that. I mean, just imagine that your child, even if your child lacks attention skills, okay? But just ask yourself, can my child tidy up 5 blocks and put them in a bin all by himself? You can say, yes, my child can do that. Okay, so put 5 blocks on a table and a bin on a table. Sit 50 centimeters next to him, close by him, about half a meter next to him, and ask him to tidy up. He tidies up, and then, okay, good. Next level is that you are supposed to go and sit 2 meters away from him and ask him to do the same task. Can you tidy up now? I sit 2 meters away. Whenever you tidy up those 5 blocks into the bin, come and show it to me. Then do the same thing, but go and leave the room and stand behind the door and ask your child, whenever you finish this tidy up, call me and I come to the room. If your child can do it in your absence, then you are behind the door, then you have left the room, that activity level is independent enough to practice at the school as well. But it was just about tidying up 5 blocks to the bin. Sometimes we might ask our children to be independently operating some task, like kind of tracing. So tracing one line, letter A. Okay, sit next to him, 50 centimeter, 2 meter, turning away. No, don't looking at him. 4 meters away, behind the door, getting back, giving review and feedback, and encouraging him more independence every time. Visual agenda that the child knows after this can do this, and then he easily remembers the sequence of that thing as well. Sometimes for some tasks that are consist of a few steps that you can jot down or put pictures of the steps, those things can remind the child, like kind of visual reminder to remember the next step. Then, in fact, you have outsourced your power of instruction to some visual aid, visual reminders, and then the child can utilize. So even if you sit next to him and your child is asking you, okay, what can I do now? You don't talk, you point to the next visual reminding. And after a few times of doing so, you don't point it by finger, you just show it with your eye, like that. Okay? And after that, you sit a few meters away. If the child asks, you just show with your face about the sequence of pictures have been put on the table as reminders. And the child is supposed to do that. Sometimes even changing the attitude of the child is more important, like asking the child to teach the dolls, or let's change the role. You are my teacher, I'm your student, let's change the role. Can you teach me how to be independent on my task? And then your child is about to teach you how to be independent. It's going to change attitude. And last, last recommendation is that it's the very great strategy, not only for total dependence or independence promotion, but also for all behavior promotion, that at the end of each day, just before going to sleep, let's review and provide positive feedback to the moments of independence or positive behavior of a child just before going to sleep. We are not going to count the number of bad behavior. Before going to sleep at night, we will review. So today we did 5 good things. Let's review the 5 good things we did today. We did this, this, this. Wow, great. Let's have a better tomorrow. Okay? Sure. And then night, night. So it's another strategy that can shape the attitude and also behavior of children in long run. Okay, so I'm done, and it's the time for Q&A. We started a little late, and now it is 8:40, so the session is terminated. So if you have any question, feel free to ask. And I'm all ears. I can see the text of question. Otherwise, we can stop the recording right now. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording.